The Honourable Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this bill and go through the motions why we have concerns about being asked to approve another $7 billion plus. I also want to let the Speaker know that I'm splitting my time with my friend from South Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola. I appreciate his contribution and look forward to that. So, Speaker, you often hear the Liberals say that they have a plan for the economy, but I think what we all know is it means it's a bunch of politicians and bureaucrats sitting around a table and coming up with yet another government program that they can spend money on. We here are being asked to scrutinize a piece of legislation asking for, like I said, over $7 billion in additional funding. We have said many times in this place that the printing of money, the $400 billion that have been printed, is causing massive inflation problems right across this country. It's causing the price of pretty much everything to go up, making things more expensive, everyday goods, hurting those who are living off their paychecks, struggling to get by every single day. But as we all know, every time a new plan is constructed, it eventually fails. And then we have the government saying, well, something is going wrong. We need to come up with another program to fix the program that we just had. It's like saying I'm going to the doctor for high blood pressure, and the doctor giving you a pill. And you say, well, now I have dry mouth. Okay, well, you get another pill for dry mouth. And then I have high blood pressure again, and they gives you another pill, and the list goes on. It's the exact same issue that we're dealing with here. In this case, the government's talking about a new daycare program, a program that on its merits looked like it's going to be deficit financed well into the future, a program that is going to cause significant issues with parents trying to access already limited spaces. Because what the government does, as we all know when it comes into the marketplace, eviscerates competition. It creates an unlevel playing field with other operators. So when you're talking about the person operating a daycare from their basement, regulated, but providing that neighborhood home, the government, by putting dollars and distorting the price, causes those spaces that would otherwise be provided in the free market to go away, causing more problems, more wait lists. And if people think daycare is expensive now, wait until the government gets its hands on it fully. And it seems that the government really has two speeds here, big government and bigger government. The daycare was one, but we're talking about the expansion of a number of these programs. What we have said all along is yes, as my friends already speaking have already pointed out, when the government is telling people to stay home, businesses to close because we were dealing with the pandemic, no one really knew what was going on, that they deserve to be compensated. And yes, we did support those programs. There were problems with those programs, the wage subsidy, the rent program, many others that we in the opposition brought to the government's attention. And in some cases, changes were made. In some cases, changes were not made. There were a number of businesses that were not able to qualify for these programs despite attention being given to these programs. Now we're finding out that potential CERB money was given to organized crime, potentially contributing to the already growing crime problem in some of our major cities. So that deserves a level of scrutiny. That deserves responsibility by us parliamentarians to do our job to find out what is actually going on, what is working, and what isn't with this program. And as we all know, the government does not have divine resources, Speaker. The only thing the government has is the taxes we pay. And if the government borrows money, it puts us in debt. If it prints money, it's the back door to taxing people, Speaker, because it is actually taxing the savings, making the savings of many in the working class worth less. And as was pointed out many times in this House, those that are sitting on big mansions or massive assets have seen their wealth grow. But it's those people struggling to get by, struggling to find a house, struggling to get into the housing market, struggling to pay their bills, or even just going to the grocery store and recognizing that their cart isn't as full as it used to be, but the price at the till is the same. And that's because the government has thrown all this money up into the atmosphere and refuses to change course. We saw even during the height of the pandemic, not only the first thing the government did was to try to seize absolute power, the absolute power to tax and spend on whatever it wanted well into the future, 2 years into the future.
That was another C2.
That was another C2. Thank you for that, Barry Innisfil, my friend, reminding me that that was an opportunity for the government to try to seize absolute power, to take the opposition right out of the equation, put all the power into the executive branch. Thankfully, opposition members stood up to that. Thankfully, Canadians in general stood up to that. But we saw a portion of that initial funds, that $400 billion, go to the CERB program, the wage subsidy, and others, the actual supports. We saw some of it go into the housing market, but we also saw a pretty big chunk go into basically a slush fund of liberal spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, but were couched in that language of COVID. Adding to the problem we are at now, the fact that businesses, especially the small ones, are struggling at this exact moment. They're struggling not only to deal with rising prices, labor shortages, and unfortunately, what we're looking at into the future is not going to get much better. Reports have shown that Canadians are going to spend upwards of $1,000 or more on groceries compared to last year. As the spending continues, we're not even talking about how we're going to service the debt into the near future, and talk about the billions that could have been used for a number of programs, but instead is being used to pay interest, just to service the debt. And even that's kind of loosely. We're paying the interest, but we're still adding on. So we're just struggling to keep our heads above water here. So we need to try to expand the economy. And you do that by keeping taxes low, the rules, regulations, and red tape at a reasonable level. You let the market take charge and thank you, 2 minutes, and allow businesses to do what they do best, create jobs, opportunity, and wealth in our communities, create paychecks for those working in the businesses, which then create more businesses and expanding opportunities. So if you want to help even the disenfranchised, you do that by expanding the economy. When you impose rules, regulations, and red tape, you contract the economy. Then you have more intervention by government, and around we go. So, Speaker, as we've mentioned here many times, we would like to see more fiscal responsibility by this government. Yes, helping those sectors that are being told they are unable to operate, specifically the travel and tourism sector. But also look at programs where we can expand the economy, where we can build things here in this country. And here in Ontario, it's been tough. We have some of the highest electricity rates in North America, thanks to the Ontario Liberals. And what does that do to the once manufacturing engine of Canada? It decimated the manufacturing industry in Canada. And unfortunately, a lot of those same people left Queen's Park and came up to Ottawa and are on that same path. Some cases, we actually paid their moving expenses. So, Speaker, we need to start doing the opposite. We need to start actually encouraging investment, encouraging brains to come and grow here, create jobs, opportunity, and wealth, low taxes, less government, more freedom. Thank you, Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I found the speech very, very fascinating because on the one hand, the member was completely able to understand and see how an economy can expand and how it can contract. Towards the end of his speech, he specifically talked about that and how government can take certain measures to expand and contract an economy. Yet at the beginning of his speech, he spoke about childcare. And he made a point of only saying that it would be contributing to a deficit, rather than being able to assess that perhaps by putting more people into the workforce, we can expand our economy in the exact same way by the definitions that he used prior to that. Why is it that Conservatives are able to talk about expanding and contracting an economy whenever it serves their purpose, but when it's about something that actually invests in and infuses opportunity for people in our economy, they're completely unable to do that?
Member for Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes Brock.
I appreciate the comments from my member across the way. Clearly, he didn't listen to a word I said.
Never does.
As was pointed out, the only speed the government has is big government and bigger government, Speaker. When we're talking about childcare, the cost of the childcare programs that the Liberal government is going across the country and trying to sign is going to be deficit finance, putting the cost on the backs of those kids who are actually entering childcare. Not only that, if you look at other jurisdictions where this has been tried, but of course the only solution is more government. If you talk about any other solution that doesn't involve more government, the Liberals just close their ears. It's absolutely amazing. We have jurisdictions in this country and elsewhere where it's been tried where there's massive waiting lists when government takes over childcare. You need to expand the opportunities for all, allow government to have its place, allow the private sector to have place, not eviscerate the private sector and expect the government to figure it all out.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And this may be the last time I rise before the holidays, so I want to wish you and all my colleagues a happy holidays, Madam Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for his really important speech and certainly for his passion. I appreciate his passion. Madam Speaker, one group that has been left out throughout this whole pandemic is startups. I think about Wildflower Bakery in Port Alberni in my riding. You know, they've had limited seating. They've had a challenge of trying to stay, up with the times. Certainly we've got this new variant now that's going to impact their business. They've got competitors, Madam Speaker, that have been able to access the emergency supports, but they've been absolutely denied. We've brought good ideas through SaveStartups.ca to the government. Government's ignored them, Madam Speaker. Nothing here in this bill to help startups. So through you, Madam Speaker, I hope my colleague can speak about startups in his riding that have been left behind and some ideas maybe from the Conservatives that they'd like to see to give those startups some support, desperate support that they need.
Member for Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes Brock.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I also want to congratulate my friend. Thank him for the question. Also wish him a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's and a safe and happy New Year as well. I appreciate the question. Yes, small business are definitely struggling, as we talked about when they were told to shut down and stop their operations in many cases, especially those on the small businesses. Government did have to step aside. But on the bigger picture, what my friend from British Columbia is talking about is we in Canada, I think we do a pretty good job, actually a decent job, a good job at the kind of the startup to small business and kind of the medium to large, but it's tough to find access to either funding or services to take them from that small to medium-sized operation. And I think that's a missed opportunity in our society as a whole because sometimes those businesses sell out or they're just not able to get to that next step and achieve that kind of success that we want to see in this country. And in worst cases, they go to other jurisdictions. So I think that's one area we can fix.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkin, and
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the member for his thoughtful speech. Madam Speaker, when originally COVID-19 and the pandemic arose, Conservatives said we would support a response from the government that was responsive to the needs and that was temporary and would bridge back to a regular economy. Now, Liberal arrogance has been said many times, Madam Speaker, is their greatest kryptonite. It seems that they haven't learned anything from their previous experience from the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. I have a FinTrack intelligence brief here that said, that I quote, reporting entities indicated that clients who do not meet the CERB eligibility requirements or who are fully employed still apply for and receive CERB benefits, often while engaging in suspicious financial activity. Mr. Speaker, there are so many things in this FinTrack that just raise the hair on the back of one's neck. I would like to ask the member, does he view this as being a targeted benefit? And have the government, have they shown that they've learned from the experience of the CERB in C2, that it's targeted to the people who need it the most, and that there's protections to make sure that those who shouldn't be receiving this benefit do not get it?
I'm afraid we've run out of time, but I know the honourable member for Haliburton Kawartha Lakes Brock wants to answer, so I'll give him 15 seconds to answer if he wants, but very quickly.
Clearly, Speaker, more work needs to be done, and it's a shame we didn't hear the speech from a member from British Columbia. He had a lot to say on this, and hopefully we'll hear from him soon. Thank you, Speaker.
Yeah, we will after QP.